Moss Book 2 is quite the thrilling read. Some great classic games hit Nintendo Switch Online. And I've got my review of Jared Leto's Morbius. All that and the latest and everything cool today in The Rundown. Hey, welcome to The Rundown. My name is Victor Lucas, and I am thrilled to have you here in the Electric Playground. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at the Gaming Stadium. They are Canada's leader in online esports tournament facilitation, and they've got tournaments happening every single weekend that you don't want to miss out on, and you can find out all about these guys at tgs.gg. And also, the Gaming Stadium has a brand new platform. It's meant to help people make their own tournaments. It's called Pepper.gg, and this is for folks that like to put some bragging rights on the line, maybe some cash on the line. Be careful there. But you can find out all about this free service that they run at Pepper.gg. And of course, we have a dedication for today's episode. It is going out to Sadness, who says, just a note about PS3 emulation. I don't think Sony is willing to invest in the development needed to do that. I suspect people don't realize how much time and development Microsoft needed to implement to get Xbox 360 and original Xbox games running. And then he says the PS3 cell architecture is still very hard to emulate. Top-end PCs boil when trying to run the RPC S3 emulator. The PS5 could barely run RPC S3. An open-source community make emulators far more have more time and expertise from the crowd to invest than similar team-based corporate development on a short deadline. Very astute comment, and yes, it makes a tremendous amount of sense that Sony is maybe a bit hesitant to revisit the past when they've got all of this future development and new, software to sell to people, but they're subscription services meant to bring as many types of players into the fold as possible, and absolutely Xbox has crunched the numbers and has recognized that there is a tremendous amount of value and goodwill in bringing people classic software in the highest fidelity that is achievable on the Xbox Series S and Series X. And so it completely makes sense for players like myself and many of you out there to kind of want Sony to deliver the same thing, especially because, as we all know, the PlayStation 3 was a console that struggled out of the gate to have the performance that was hyped to us. And there's some incredible software on PS3 that would just run beautifully on the PS5 if the skill was there to make the emulation run really, really well. I hope that eventually becomes the case because, streaming this software just won't be the same as playing it right off of the metal. But it is nice that we are going to get a nice assortment of different titles to play across the PlayStation generations. Looking forward to more information on the new subscription services. Oh, and hey, I just found out before we went live with the show today, and we go live on our Twitch channel, by the way, twitch.tv/EPN, so please follow the channel there if you aren't already. E3 is canceled fully. No digital, no live event. It's surreal. I've been going to E3 since the very first one in 1995, and I've been following the digital ones as well as we've been all dealing with this pandemic. It is incredibly, it's a big bummer for me to hear that there is no E3 at all, and who knows if it's going to be coming back. The Summer Game Fest from Jeff Keighley is coming back, and he's celebrating. He's got victory laps going on Twitter right now. But I hope it's not RIP E3. But we'll find out more soon, I'm sure. All right, let's talk about a VR game that has been enchanting me. It's called Moss Book 2. If you've got a PlayStation VR set up in your house, whether for your PlayStation 4 or dongled up to your PS5, I think I know what you're going to be up to this weekend. Moss Book 2 is here. Moss is one of the best VR experiences that I have had as a player. And Moss Book 2 had a lot to live up to, but also the setup was really good with the original game because Moss was not an enormous game. It was a brief visit to this fantastical world where you play a little mouse adventurer named Quill. And Quill is helped along by you, not just as the player, but you're also a participant in the adventure of the first game and also in the second game. You play the reader, and the whole setup, the whole idea behind these Moss adventures is that you are rifling through pages of this grand fantasy adventure tome, and you are living what's on the page. So you'll have picture book moments where you're actually flipping through pages, and then you'll go into the adventure that is being discussed and narrated. And there's an incredible actor that does all the narration and does a lot of the different character voices and has an amazing time with it and is incredibly inviting. It's like you're being read a story. And so what's unique about Moss 2 is that obviously there was a lot of great work to build off of. And so we're seeing a lot more interaction with the background environments. There's a lot more character depth and detail. You see this giant frog that comes out to greet you, and it was terrifying when you first see it. And the thing that I will say about this footage, this is all in 2D, right? And I've captured it right off of the PlayStation 5, and it's not quite the same as if you've got the headset on and you're looking at all of the tactility of the world that has been crafted for you by Polyarc, the developers. They've done an amazing job at building something that feels like you can reach, from your eyeballs and into the world and touch everything. But they also give you that experience as well, because you play this character in the story, the reader, that actually does interact with objects in the world. You see that I had to push it forward in order to take control of the door and pull it open. And you see in this little one, I'm grabbing an enemy that I've been fighting as I'm moving the sticks around on the controller, but I also can actually move the controller by pressing the triggers down, and I drag this creature that I'm fighting over to this switch to open the door for me. And there's lots and lots of instances throughout the game where it's a little bit of you're moving the controller and you're using the thumbsticks, and it sounds like it would be cumbersome, but it's so elegantly made and it's so inviting. The whole world of Moss. And, honestly, you're not going to want to dive into Moss 2 if you haven't played Moss 1, and it's so worth it. The thing about Moss Book 2, though, is that obviously it's just launching, and currently it is a PlayStation VR exclusive. It's not available for any other VR platforms. The original Moss is available on a bunch of different platforms, including Oculus Quest. But what is achieved with this game is obviously an enhancement visually. You can see lots of beautiful details as you enter the castle. You can see all the ferns, and you can slice all the grass with your tiny little sword. And everything just feels like it might be poking you in the eye. And the cool thing about playing this reader character in the game with your headset on is that you're actually in the world with Quill. So it's not just the camera like it is in Lucky's Tale. There is an element of being able to, look at reflections and stuff. Here's a fantastic sequence right here where Quill walks over to this broken mirror, and as the camera pivots, you kind of recognize, you see something, and that is actually you that you are looking at with the headset. And it's a bit eerie, it's a bit discomforting, but it's also incredibly powerful because you honestly feel like you have influence on what happens and what transpires and how this little mouse gets taken care of in a really profound way that only virtual reality can deliver. And I think that's one of the core conceits and core wins of this game, is that there's a lot about it that could exist in two-dimensional space and still be really well crafted and really fun. But because the developers that are all vets, by the way, they're ex-Bungie and ex-Rockstar developers, so they have a lot of experience, but they thought it through. They really thought about how you are going to inject yourself into the game world. And so you will manipulate, giant pieces of the puzzle to allow Quill to maneuver from space to space. There's a section in there where you get the ability to kind of bring life back into this wooded area that you traverse through, which is really cool. And you can create a bridge, and you just sort of grab it with a couple of the trigger buttons and you pull the bridge across. So it's really kind of showing you what you can do in this world. Now, we've done these kinds of things in 2D games for a long time, but it feels so palpable in VR. Quill also picks up a bunch of brand new abilities, and I'll show off one right here. I'm trying not to spoil too much in the story because there are some nice twists and turns and some shocks. It's not all happy adventuring. There's some sad elements in here too, but she gets this kind of flash zip ability where you press on both trigger buttons after she's put her sword up in the air, and you can zip across, open spaces and stuff. You can also use it while you're trying to solve a puzzle, like you see me here right now. I'm trying to hold this swing that you can actually grasp by pressing down on the trigger buttons. I'm trying to push the swing a little bit closer to the platform, and then I'm going to do the zip move. So I'm in control of every element here, even though it looks like I'm just using the swing or something like that. There's some new skills that you have to pick up as a player. It is very intuitive, and I have to commend Polyarc for making it as with the first game, and again here with Moss 2, to make it such a low barrier to entry. You are going to be able to conceptualize what you have to do, and you're going to be able to deal with it. And of course, one of the cool things that you can do with this zip move is you can use it as an attack. And so there's enemies that you're going to fight. I would say that it's a bigger emphasis on exploration and puzzle solving than enemy attacks. But you are threatened, and there are things that will hurt you and take you out of the game. You also can't go swimming, so if you fall in the water, it'll give you a quick restart. The checkpoint system is really friendly to the player. The whole thing is honestly, it's like a big hug. Even when you die or get hurt quite a bit, one of the things that you can do as the reader is you can grab Quill and pick her up and give her a little bit of health, and you can see that she gets a nice big hug from her uncle. And that's the other cool thing about this game too, is that there's a beautiful sense of detail in the title, and you have control of the camera, so you can tilt your head right in and push your head right into the moments, and it's like you can zoom in and do whatever you want to do in real time as you're playing the thing. It's really a beautiful, beautiful experience. Now, the thing about the first game is that myself and many reviewers out there really complained about the brevity of the game. It was more experiential, like a lot of VR games in general. It was more like, let's show the themes and let's show some cool gameplay models and modes, but then we're not going to overstay our welcome. Partially because I imagine development on a VR experience is incredibly elaborate and complex, and probably a lot more work than we can imagine. And the budgets aren't enormous because the sales on a lot of VR titles aren't as huge as some of the AAA things that are out there. So Moss was an incredible short experience, and everybody wanted more at the end of it, including myself. And that was really the only knock. I'm happy to report that Moss 2 is much longer than the first game, and there's also a lot more detail in the game and a lot more finesse in the game, as you can kind of expect from a team that has been working with this world and coming up with different ideas, and is clearly reveling in their opportunity here. And that's what you see. There's a maturity to the world building, to the craftsmanship, to the artistry, to the the puzzle solving and the complexity of everything. There's a great example too. You find a hammer in this game that's too heavy for Quill to pick up by herself, and so you as the reader can contribute and find some ways to help Quill. It's such a freaking cool experience. Is it the best VR game that I've played so far? It's up there. It's definitely up there. I love the commitment to take us to another world that feels so believable, and even the length of time it takes for little Quill to walk across the screen is because she's got these tiny little legs and everything is oversized. It reminded me a little bit of It Takes Two in a way, that sort of level of commitment and detail in that awesome game. There's a little bit of that in this one as well, but she'll take forever to just walk across the screen, and she finally leaves. And it's really cute, and her little waddle is super cute, and she's got these badass moves, and so she's not just a little cutie, and it's not just an adorable game. She's got some actual skills, and there's this kind of ethereal quality of you as the reader, and you sort of picking up on all the lore and all of the work that's in this game. Yeah, it is a marvel. It is an absolute treat, and honestly, a no-brainer for anybody that has a PlayStation VR headset right now. I think everybody's questioning what Sony's plans are going to be for PlayStation VR 2 and what that's going to mean for software that you might pick up for the original PSVR. Hopefully they're not going to make any kind of a boneheaded decision where PSVR 2 won't play PSVR 1 titles, but this will clearly be a standout experience when you play this on a headset with even more expanded resolution and less cumbersome. Because that was playing the game, the only cumbersome thing about it for me was setting up the PlayStation VR on my PlayStation 5 with the USB dongle and all of the extra cables. Thankfully, I'm using the controller and not the Move controllers. But I did find that the headset was so freaking comfortable to apply. I've been playing a lot of Quest 2, and that's an incredible VR platform, but the headset is not as comfortable because it's a little heavier than PSVR 2, PSVR. So it was, all in all, a joyous escape and a really mature and really well-made, beautifully polished escape. I just think this Moss world that Polyarc is building is some of the best gaming you can have right now. And it's a little unfortunate that it's all locked to VR, because I feel like there's room for these characters and this world building to exist in 2D and across a bunch of different platforms. But I also, I applaud and salute the commitment to VR to make stuff that is this solid for VR players out there. So I suspect if you have PlayStation VR, this is going to be a must-play for you. And definitely keep this game and this franchise, on your radar, because one day you will make a jump to some kind of VR platform, likely if you're watching Electric Playground. And Moss 2 should be at the top of your list for pickups. I'm going to give Moss Book 2 a 9 out of 10. All right, I've got some news about some classic games that Nintendo has just dropped on the Nintendo Switch Online platform. Very happy to see this. They had a little video sort of outlining the 3 titles that they dropped. Earthworm Jim 2 for the Super Nintendo. This is a game I have not played in many years, and I am very excited to load this up on my Switch this weekend. Obviously, this is picking up on all of the crazy, over-the-top gameplay modes and the wacky sense of humor that the Earthworm Jim franchise is known for, and it's made by the core team that made the first game as well. And they got a little bit stronger when they moved to the sequel on Nintendo, or onto Super Nintendo, because they were primarily a Genesis kind of focused developer. And I'm talking about Shiny Entertainment. They kind of all came from Virgin, working on the Sega Genesis, and they got a lot stronger working on Super Nintendo with Earthworm Jim 2. Also, a couple of NES titles, Dig Dug 2. I honestly don't remember playing this. I don't even know if this is based on an arcade version of Dig Dug 2. I don't remember this game. I remember Dig Dug for sure. I definitely have never played Dig Dug 2 on the NES, but I'm a fan of Dig Dug. I always thought that was an awesome idea, very original, and it's just freaking cool to see more Dig Dug on, from the classic days on a brand new Nintendo machine, which is awesome. We also are going to be getting, or we have, Mappy Land, which looks like a crazy platformer kind of in the vein of the Super Mario Brothers stuff that was back in the arcades. And so many developers were trying to come up with multi-screen action-adventure platformers, and this looks super damn cute. I haven't played this one either. I got to be honest, I had the NES, but I bought it sort of late in its life cycle because I was focusing on acting at that point, and I picked up the NES sort of, I think in 1988 or something, months before the Sega Genesis came out. So I didn't have a huge library of NES titles. And that's why I love the NES Mini, and I've also loved the Nintendo Switch Online NES collection. So whenever I jump into those games, I'm always appreciative of how freaking talented the developers were, because they had no hardware muscle to make fun and entertaining experiences, and man, did they ever. So that's a long way of saying I haven't played Mappy Land, but I definitely want to. But I've got some more Nintendo news for you. Nintendo also dropped a little bit of information about Nintendo Switch Sports. Sports, which is coming up at the end of the month. They had a nice video encapsulating all of the different modes that we're going to get in this game, with some flashy visuals and flashy graphics, kind of in line with the higher resolution bump up that we're seeing in the visuals in the game. I mean, this is a slick looking game. We find out that we are going to be participating in all of these events in a place called Spocko Square, but they showed off the different events that we're going to be getting to begin with, and I know that more is coming down the road. Volleyball is one of the first ones that they showed off, and as they were showing off the gameplay, and a lot of it is what you would expect out of a sports type action game like this, especially coming off of Wii Sports, but they also showed in little boxes and windows some of the motion controls that you're going to be able to do within the game. And each one of these different sports. Badminton is another one that's coming to Nintendo Switch Sports, and I have to be honest, I can't remember every single event that was in Wii Sports and Wii Sports 2, and I can't remember all of the things, so I don't know if this is brand new or not, but it looks pretty cool. I do remember bowling. I loved Wii Sports bowling, so I'm excited to see the upgrades to Switch Sports. I remember bowling being incredibly addictive on the Wii, and if they can recapture that, but improve the fidelity and make it feel even more realistic on the Switch, that will be a big hit, I'm sure. And then they also showed off some soccer, which looked a little bit like they've been taking some cues from Rocket League with the oversized ball. But this looks fun as well, and you can use the controller and you can use motion controls, but they also have the leg strap that you can pick up, the accessory, and strap it to your leg and do free kicks and stuff with the game, which looks crazy. I mean, it looks super cute, and I think that's going to be a big hit too if it feels one-to-one. Then they also have a sword fighting experience called Chambara, and I don't know if this is a real thing. I've never heard Chambara, but you can whack opponents off of a platform and they fall into the water. Is there a televised version of this? Because this sounds amazing, and it sounds painful. But I would watch this on TV, or does anybody do this? Or is this only in video game form? Because this is cool. But you can have dual wield. So I'm going to call this the lightsaber mode, basically, right? You're just flailing with your foam lightsabers. It looks like a lot of, and trying to knock your opponent into the pool. That looks aggressive and super crazy fun. Tennis is coming back. Tennis was a huge hit on Nintendo Wii Sports. And obviously the fidelity is going to be a lot better. And this is taking advantage of some of the AMD hyper-resolution stuff that they've been working on behind the scenes. There's been some data mining on some of the information on this game, and people have recognized that it's going to look better than it should on Nintendo Switch. So that's exciting. And then they went over some of the different play styles and talked about the online play. And of course, this is going to be very multiplayer focused and split screen in a bunch of different ways. I know my kid is going to be super excited about all the customization options. The Miis have never looked better, right? Are they calling them Miis? I mean, these characters look amazing in this. And I think that's part of I think this is a look back at what the Miis used to look like. They look incredible. And then I think to kind of showcase that this is a game for everybody, they've also worked with Jessica Alba to create, and her family, to create a sense of what this is going to look like in people's homes and stuff, which, obviously this is tailored to appeal to as many people as possible and as many demographics as possible. Nintendo did that before with Wii Sports and the Nintendo Wii, so we'll see if they are able to kind of catch lightning in a bottle again. It looks like they might. Are you guys excited for Nintendo Switch Sports, or are you like, I did all that stuff before, I don't need to do it again. I don't need to waggle and do the tennis and the badminton and the kicking. I want to check it all out, though. Those games were undeniably fun on the Wii, so I want to see how they work out. All right, I've got another review for you. I took one for the team, and I went and saw Morbius last night. The idea of Michael Morbius in the superhero canon is a pretty cool one. This is a scientist who has a blood condition who transforms himself into a vampire, that old chestnut. And they got Jared Leto, who is a terrific actor. And I have to say, I actually enjoyed Jared Leto in this movie because it wasn't, I mean, he obviously has these showy moments where he's affected and there's digital makeup and he turns into a vampire and he's trying to be creepy. But I enjoyed his performance as this kind of hobbled character because his blood condition is making him very weak, and he's got to, use a cane to walk around, and he's, he's a character that has been through stuff, but he felt quite human. He's also a character that has a lot of empathy, and so there's this interesting juxtaposition of this, bloodthirsty character who literally lives on the blood of other people, but he's also an incredibly, gifted mind and an empathetic soul. He's a physician, and so he actually wins a Nobel Peace Prize in the movie for creating artificial blood. What a coincidence, right? So he, as his vampire character, ends up drinking this artificial blood until he has this real blood, like red blood, they call it, human blood thirst, and so he has to deal with that. And the setup for the film was actually pretty good. It was going along pretty good. And then kind of what happens is there's a big bad that gets introduced into this title. A lot of the buildup and the creation of Morbius and the myth of the character actually is kind of rad. There's some cool visual effects. He's got bat radar, so he can sense things everywhere. They do this kind of liquid visual effect across everything. And he also picks up the idea that he can kind of surf on airwaves and things like that, so he can fly. And I kind of dug all of that, but the big bad, played by Matt Smith, really breaks everything down into it's just going head to head with these two superpowered beings going back and forth and crashing through city walls and trying to punch each other. And it's not very smart, and it kind of pops the balloon of all of the work that has happened so far in the film, and it just sort of focuses the camera on this back and forth that doesn't make a lot of sense. And the other thing that the whole setup for these two characters is a flashback sequence that was really poorly handled. There's no other way to say it. So there's no emotional investment in this relationship, and the movie really hinges on you having this idea that you care about how these two characters interact, and it's just not great, and then it's over, and the movie is incredibly short. And so there is this cool kind of build-up to this super-powered being coming to terms with the abilities that he has and what that means in the real world. And, of course, the cops are chasing him. But then it's over. And the way that it ends is just so bloody stupid. And then there's a huge emphasis on Sony's part, and I can't believe that Marvel had any real say in any of this, to kind of inject that this is part of a larger universe like they're doing in every good Marvel creation out there, and it just felt so artificial and superfluous and tacky. It was so poorly handled, the whole climax and ending of all of this, that it just leaves a terrible you leave the theater and you're like, what did I waste my time with there? That was just awful. And it's too bad, because I think that the character of Morbius, who has been around since the 70s, there was a 1971 comic where the character was revealed, and I read this book, and it was really cool. I mean, the idea of this vampire sort of self-forming himself and then working as a villain, fighting against Spider-Man, and eventually becoming a bit of an anti-hero, and then being a part of the supernatural subculture of the Marvel universe, the comic universe. It is a perfect platform to grow and to see the idea of Morbius beside Ghost Rider or Blade. I mean, that would be an interesting matchup, right? To see Blade and Morbius. But the movie just kills itself. It's so flat, and it just devolves into nothing. Even though I like some of the ingredients. I like Jared Leto, and the effects were pretty cool, and the idea of the character is pretty cool, and so I was having a good time for, I'd say, about 45 minutes of the film, and then I really was not having a good time. And then it was like, oh my God, I'd rather watch Moon Knight 4 or 5 more times than sit and watch this thing. It was just pathetic. It felt like they ran out of ideas and or money, or somebody saw a test screening and people were flipping out, and they tried to save it and make it more action-packed or whatever they did not work. And it certainly doesn't have the light touch that the Spider-Man stuff has had over the last little while, in terms of character building and bringing us in emotionally. This one does not have that. And the other thing I got to say, too, is like Sony has got to stop with this BS of introducing these villains to Spider-Man, or these characters that are ancillary to Spider-Man, and then Spider-Man is nowhere to be seen. And, it just feels so dumb. It's like, work it out and bring Spider-Man. I don't know, you got all kinds of Spider-Mans now, right? So work it out so you can have, if you're going to say it, get them in there. Don't tease them on posters and the trailers and stuff. Work your shit out and get your Spider-Man into your thing, because people end up talking about Spider-Man, and it's just like, well, that was stupid. And we saw that with the Venom movies, which are better than this, by the way. And those ain't great. But I can't completely just throw this totally under the bus. I don't think it's the worst. Actually, yeah, it probably is. I think it is the worst Marvel thing I've seen. Maybe it's there with the Fantastic Four remake that Miles Teller was in. That was the worst. That was awful. Okay, so there's some company for this one, but it's down there. It's down in the subterranean depths of the Marvel experiences out there. I would really hazard and warn you guys, honestly, don't go see Morbius in theaters. It's not worth it. Wait till it comes home. I know there's going to be a lot of curiosity about it. They tease more, but I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, if it makes money, they'll make more for sure. And I can't fault Leto. I think it's interesting. They hired a literal vampire to play a vampire. Guy does not age. So good work there. But everything else is kind of trashy. I'm going to give Morbius a 3.5 out of 10. All right, let's move on. And this is a shout out to my buddy John Yomtov Jr., who says, major Game Pass news in a tweet today. And he pointed me to Wario64's tweet of Windows Central talking about Microsoft going forward with a big new family plan for Game Pass, which is going to let people in households or by somehow connected to each other share a plan that would be a lot less expensive for up to 5 people. So it would be a lot less expensive than 5 individuals each having Game Pass. So I don't know quite how this is all going to work, but they're working on it, and it's going to be somewhat similar to what Netflix has been doing with the family plan. I guess Nintendo's got a family plan. So we'll see how this all comes together. But I think what this really highlights is that Xbox has been waiting for Sony to reply to what Game Pass is, and they have now done that, although I think it's their first salvo. But now it's going to be up to Microsoft and Xbox to kind of answer with all kinds of evolutions and iterations of what Game Pass is. And pricing might change, and they might loop in Xbox Live Gold into it. John Yomtov also popped out a great comment about Microsoft just rolling in internet so it's free, and then just charging for Game Pass. So I think what we're probably going to see is just Xbox getting a lot more aggressive with its branding and its stories around Game Pass. And you can bet we're going to hear a lot about MLB The Show 22 very soon. But that's, I think, a pretty cool development. There's going to be a family plan for Xbox Game Pass players out there in the not-too-distant future, which is pretty cool. And we've got a lot of big games coming up, so that's pretty sweet. All right, I've got a couple of things to tell you guys about. There's a game coming up from Raw Fury, and they're talking about this being the biggest game that they have invested in, and it's called Superfuse. And the idea is it's kind of like a Diablo or an X-Men Legends top-down action role-playing game with superheroes, and it looks really cool. It's going to go into early access later this year on PC, but you're going to be able to customize and create your own superheroes, and it's 4-player team-up, and it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. It's been a long time since we've been able to do the top-down team-up superhero type of experience. I guess Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 was the last time that we really got to do that. Would love Marvel Ultimate Alliance 4 announced anytime soon there, Nintendo or Marvel. But look forward to Super Fuse. When it goes into early access, I'll definitely download it and we'll play it together. How does that sound? And one last thing, our good friend Ewan McGregor took to Star Wars Twitter and Star Wars on YouTube and announced that Obi-Wan, the show that we are all waiting for, all of us Star Wars fanatics out there, is going to launch a couple of days later. But he had some good news in the fact that there's going to be 2 episodes in the launch of the show. On May 27th, we're going to get episode 1 and episode 2 of Obi-Wan. I cannot freaking wait for this show. It looks absolutely stellar. It looks like, they're pulling out all the stops, all the stuff that they learned on Boba Fett and absolutely in The Mandalorian. It just looks mega wattage. And Hayden Christensen's going to be in there as Darth Vader. It looks like there's going to be some awesome Jedi hunting going on and lots of cool lightsaber battles and force battles. And Ewan McGregor is just such an amazing actor. I love the guy. And he's going to be forever known. I think he's come to terms with it, but he's going to be forever be known as Obi-Wan now. I mean, I'm sure he already is. I'm sure he gets recognized everywhere. But from now on, that's it. His life is Obi-Wan for the rest, because he's just going to look older and older. He's going to look a lot more like Alec Guinness as we go on here. But I cannot wait. May 27th is when we get our new Star Wars show. All right, you guys, that's going to do it for the rundown today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again very soon with a fresh episode for you. Thank you for subscribing to our YouTube channel and to all of our EPN members. And if you haven't already, subscribe to our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/EPN. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon. And until then, play forever.